Hello, students, and a warm welcome. I hope each one of you is doing well by the grace of God. Our topic for today is Chapter 8 Economy and Occupations. This chapter is about a comparative study of India and Brazil with reference to national income, national per capita income, and the main occupations. What is an economy? An economy is a system of organizations and institutions that either facilitate or play a role in the production and distribution of goods and services in a society. Economies determine how resources are distributed among members of a society. They determine the value of goods or services, and they even determine what sort of things can be traded or bartered for those services and goods. In the previous class, we have learned what is economics. The word economics comes from the Greek word oikonomia, which means family management. There is a lot of similarity between family management and economics. We understand from economics how to use time, money, labor, and land effectively, how to satisfy the infinite needs of the people using various resources is the study matter of economics. Geographically speaking, the enterprises related to the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services in a specific region is called an economy. On a global level, there are three types of economies. The three types of economies are capitalistic economy, socialistic economy, and the third is the mixed economy. Capitalistic economy is where the ownership and management of means of production is in the hands of the private individual. Socialistic economy is the means of production belongs to the society as a whole, the government's control, and mixed economy is where there is a coexistence of private and public sectors. Let us see the economies in detail. Capitalism or capitalist economy is referred to as the economic system where the factors of production such as capital goods, labor, natural resources, and entrepreneurship are controlled and regulated by private businesses. In a capitalist economy, the production of all the goods and services is dependent on the demand and supply in the market, which is also known as market economy. It is different from the central planning system, which is also known as command economy or planned economy. The main characteristics of a capitalist economy is the motive of earning profit. The capitalist economy is also characterized by the presence of free markets and lack of government participation in regulating the business. Capitalist economy is the most predominant in the current global economy. USA, UK, Germany, Japan, Singapore, all are the classic examples of capitalist economies. In a socialist economy, the setup is exactly opposite to that of a capitalist economy. In such an economy, the factors of production are all state owned. So, all the factories, machinery, plants, capital, etc., is owned by a community in control of the state. All citizens get the benefits from the production of goods and services on the basis of equal rights. Hence, this type of economy is known as the command economy. The production occurs according to the needs of the society and at the command of the state or the planning authorities. The market and the factors of supply and demand will play no role here. The ultimate aim of a socialist economy is to ensure the maximization of wealth of a whole community, a whole country, and to achieve social welfare. It aims to have an equal distribution of wealth amongst all its citizens, not just the welfare of its richest companies and individuals. Cuba and North Korea are prominent examples. A mixed Economy is a system wherein both public and private enterprise occur. So essentially, private producers and government endeavors are operating in accordance in the economy. In some sense, a mixed economy thus combines both a socialist and capitalist approach to the economic marketplace by allowing the government to provide enterprise in areas like healthcare or aerospace, while simultaneously allowing private producers or companies to engage in production and competition in the marketplace. The ownership of means of production lies with public as well as private sector. Coexistence of the private and public sectors is the outstanding feature of mixed economy. In mixed economy, both public sector as well as the private sector industries will be functioning. India and Brazil have adopted this type of economy. On the basis of classification of ownership, the economy is divided into two sectors, that is the public sector and the private sector. The public sector consists of various organizations owned and managed by the government. These organizations may either be partly or wholly owned by the central or state government. They also may be a part of the ministry or come into existence by a special act of the parliament. The government, through these enterprises, participates in the economic activities of the country. Public sectors include public goods and governmental services such as military, infrastructure, public roads, bridges, tunnels, water supply, public education, healthcare, etc. The private sector is the part of the economy that is run by individuals and companies for profit and is not state controlled. Therefore, it encompasses all for profit businesses that are not owned or operated by the government. Electronics, manufacturing, financial services, law firms, estate agents, hospitality are all examples of private sector employment areas. A table regarding the ownership of various sectors in both the country is given. Banking is private and public both in Brazil, and in India too it is private and public both. Railways is private and public both in Brazil. At the same time, it is largely public in India. Airways is private and public both in Brazil. It's the same in India too. It is private and public both. Electricity production is largely public in Brazil. In the same way, India too, it is largely public. Iron and steel industry is also largely public in both Brazil and India. Health, it is private and public both in Brazil. The same way in India too, it is private and public. Education in Brazil is largely public, little of private, while in India it is private and public both. Telecommunication in Brazil is private and public both. Similar way in India too it is private and public both. An economy of a country depends on the economic activities carried out in the country. You have already learned there are three types of economic activities and an economy. The three types of economy are primary, secondary, and tertiary. The first one is the primary sector. The primary sector, the economic activities which are connected with the extraction and production of natural resources such as farming, logging, hunting, fishing, and mining. The primary sector tends to make up a larger portion of the economy in developing countries than it does in developed countries. Secondary activities are activities associated with secondary sector, including metalworking and smelting, automobile production, textile production, chemical and engineering industries, aerospace manufacturing, shipbuilding, construction, etc. Industries which are involved in making more valuable and useful goods from the products of primary activities such as agriculture, forestry, fishing, and mining are called secondary activities. Manufacturing of cloth from cotton, sugar from sugarcane, etc., are the example of secondary activities. India's contribution to the GDP is around, from the secondary sector, is around 24.3%, while Brazil's contribution from the secondary sector is around 9% to the GDP, that is to the economy, to the country's economy. The third sector or the third activity is the tertiary sector. The economic activities that are mostly based on providing services to the society are called the tertiary sector. Tertiary activities include both production and exchange. The production involves the provision of services that are consumed by the people, and exchange involves trade, transport, and communication facilities. The activities of tertiary sector do not produce good at its own, but assist in the process of production. For example, to sell the goods produced by the primary and the secondary sector, you need trains, you need trucks, you need transport vehicles. So, to transport them to the wholesale and the retail markets. Godowns are required to store the goods manufactured by these industries. Thus, the activities relating to transport, storage, communication, banks, and trade are included in the tertiary sector. As the activities of tertiary sector create services in place of goods and communities, it is also called as the service sector. The service sector contributes around 26.9% in India to the GDP, and in Brazil it is around 71% that the tertiary sector contributes to the economy. Let us classify the following activities by ticking in the respective column given on page 52. The activities are given in one column. You have to tick in front of it. So we have television and broadcasting, it is tertiary. Beekeeping is primary. Coir and rope making will be secondary. Jaggery making is secondary. Producing blades of the plough is secondary. Construction is also secondary. Extracting iron ore is primary. Automobile production is secondary. Rice production is primary. Teaching, driving buses, providing lodging and boarding facilities comes under tertiary activities. Students, now let us read the following graph and answer the questions given on page 52. The graph is of the gross national income, that is the GNI, from 1960 to 2016 in million US dollars. GNI is the total amount of money earned by a nation's people and businesses. It is used to measure and track a nation's wealth from year to year. The number includes the nation's gross domestic product plus the income it receives from overseas sources. The given bar graph is a joint bar graph of three countries, Brazil, India, and the USA. A joint bar graph is a set of bar graphs showing different sets of information but joined to each other. It is evident from the graph that USA has the highest national income from 1960 to 2016. Comparing India and Brazil, Brazil had a higher national income in 1980 and 2000, but in 2016, India had a higher national income. So students, the pie charts given on page 53 show the contribution of each sector in the respective country's GDP and the percentage of population engaged in various activities. Let us read the pie charts of both the countries carefully and answer the questions. The given graph is in the form of a circle divided into sectors. If you see, the grey color is the tertiary sector, orange is secondary, and blue is primary. India has a higher percentage of population engaged in primary activities, that is 48.8%. The contribution of tertiary sector is greater in Brazil's GDP, that is around 67%, wherein India it is just 57%. The contribution of secondary activities is more in Brazil's GDP, that is 27.5%, and India is slightly backward, that is 26%. It is evident from the graph that Brazil is not an agrarian economy like India. India has more percentage of population engaged in primary activities, and Brazil is contributing more in the tertiary sector. The share of secondary activities is more of GDP in Brazil, and 71% of the people are engaged in tertiary activities in Brazil. Its GDP is around 67%. Hence, Brazil is a fast growing service sector. In figure 8.1, we saw that India has a higher national income than Brazil. Brazil is one of the world's giants of mining, agriculture, and manufacturing, and it has a strong and rapidly growing service sector. On the other hand, India is still dependent on agriculture, though service sector is also increasing in India. Like the Indian economy, the Brazilian economy is also a mixed economy. Both the Indian and the Brazilian economies are developing economies. Their per capita incomes are very less as compared to the developed countries like the USA. It is interesting to note that though India has a higher national income as compared to Brazil, the per capita income of India is lower than Brazil. The table given clearly denotes that United States is a developed country. The population of this country is well educated. This country has the strength of many patents. A patent is a form of intellectual property that gives its owner the legal right to exclude others from making, using, or selling an invention for a limited period of years in exchange for publishing and enabling public disclosure of the invention. United States has the strength of many patents, modern technology, and mechanical strength. This country is far ahead of Brazil and India in terms of national per capita income. India and Brazil are developing countries. These countries are progressing in the field of technological advancement, education, and industry. The national per capita income of the countries is low. India's per capita income seems to be even lower as India's size is very large. Now let us take a look at the map given on page 54. The given map shows the major primary activities of Brazil. The cartographic technique used in the given map is pictorial symbols or diagrams. Agriculture, mining, animal husbandry, fishery, and ocean currents have been highlighted in the current map. In agriculture, we can see coffee, rice, corn, sugarcane, cocoa, rubber, banana, orange, and soybean. Mining, you can see it is manganese, bauxite, iron ore, coal. We have animal husbandry, fisheries, and the ocean currents very clearly shown in the index. Let's see the main occupations in Brazil. Agriculture in Brazil is the main occupation of the people living in the highlands and the coastal areas. Favorable climate and topography make it possible for growing a variety of crops. Rice and maize are the main cereal crops. Maize is also corn. It's known as corn. Production of maize is largely concentrated in the central part. Commercial crops like coffee, cocoa, rubber, soya bean, and sugarcane are cultivated on a large scale. Brazil is the largest exporter of coffee and soya bean in the world. The major states growing coffee are Minas Gerais and Sao Paulo. Besides these crops, production of fruits like bananas, pineapples, oranges, and other citrus fruits is also done. Cattle, sheep, and goats are also reared in savanna grasslands in the south. Consequently, meat and dairy products are produced on a large scale in this region. The next type of occupation is mining. The eastern part of Brazil is rich in various type of minerals. Iron ore, manganese, nickel, copper, bauxite, tungsten, diamonds, etc. Inaccessibility, lack of knowledge of potential reserves of resources, dense forests, etc., are factors which have led to limitations in mining in the interior parts of the country. Nevertheless, because of increasing demand in the country, mining work has developed well in the highland region. Fishing is the next important occupation in Brazil. Brazil has a sea coast of around 7,400 kilometers and excellent fishing grounds off the South Atlantic coast. The meeting of the warm Brazil current and the cold Falkland current off the coast of southeast Brazil makes it a good fishing ground. Traditionally, fishing has been carried on by small groups of individual fishermen using primitive techniques and equipments. But now, large vessels are being used. Swordfish, shrimps, lobsters, sardines are mainly caught. The fish resources of the Amazon River are not exploited much, and fishing only takes place at on a small scale. Due to the rapid topography, dense forests, and huge discharge from rivers, inland fishing is developed on a small scale.